Mai Gavanen, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be all about Nienna, one of the Valar that Tolkien created in his story, the Silmarillion. The Valars are powers, not necessarily gods or goddesses, but they're powers, and they have dominion over these certain aspects of Arda. What the Elven Spiritual Path has realized is that these powers reside within all of us, and we use the Valars as a way to empower our own selves and our own lives. And so with great excitement, I present Nienna. Nienna is one of the Valar, and she is known to be the Lady of Mercy and Compassion and she who weeps. It's very good to start, I think, the Valar series in this way, because along with also being one to be a weeper and one who has mercy on those of Arda or Earth, she is also a purifier, a cleanser of all sins or wrongs, and she has compassion and forgiveness within her heart to do so. And so this is a great way to start the Elven Spiritual Path. Many of us have maybe done some things in our lives. Many of us have experienced sadness and pain. And now it is time to fully gain our full understanding of wisdom within those times of sadness and within those times of when we may have not acted so great and we're not proud of ourselves. She is the one that will purify us. And when we get in touch with these powers, has great benefits in our own lives. I'm going to begin with a full research study on Nienna so that you can absorb all the information about this particular Valar. And this will allow you to start to embody her specific powers in your own life. Nienna's part in the music of the Ainur was one of deep sadness, and from this grief entered the world in its beginning. So she was one of the Ainurs that represented more of the sadder sounds and the parts of the harmony that was more gentle and sad. And when that music was sung, this is when sadness entered into Arda. But for a very good reason, as we will learn in the future here. I will begin with the very beginning part of the Silmarillion. Mightier than Este is Nienna, sister of the Fëantori. She dwells alone. She is acquainted with grief and mourns for every wound that Arda has suffered in the marring of Melkor. So great was her sorrow as the music unfolded that her song turned to lamentation long before its end, and the sound of mourning was woven into the themes of the world before it began. But she does not weep for herself, and those who hearken to her learn pity and endurance and hope. Her halls are west of west, upon the borders of the world, and she comes seldom to the city of Valimar, where all is glad. She goes rather to the halls of Mandos, which are near to her own, and all those who wait in Mandos cry for her. Cry to her, for she brings strength to the spirit, and turns sorrow to wisdom. The windows of her house look outward from the walls of the world. So there you have it. All the beings of Arda would be able to understand their sadness and their grief and their pain, and understand that it actually helped them gain wisdom later on and strength of spirit. One of the things that we learn is that the Maya Orling, who later traveled to Earth as Gandalf the Grey, and then later on became the White, was taught by her. He actually was living in the house of Lorien, which is the Valar of Dreams, and also later on became named Lothlorien, or named after Lorien. And what Gandalf would do was he would actually listen to Nienna, and he would take part in her teachings, and he would learn that in sadness there was also great wisdom to be found. In sorrow and grief and tragedy, there was also a greater opportunity for love to grow and learning to happen, and for a spirit to get stronger. And this is why Tolkien wrote one of his quotes that Gandalf said, which says, "I will not say, do not weep, for not all tears are an evil." Gandalf learned this from Nienna and her power. And so he said this in the Return of the King. And this is something that always gave solace to the group, for them to understand that through all of this hard tasks and obstacles, and Frodo especially, he was very upset about all of the grief and the suffering in the world. And Gandalf said, well, because you feel sadness, there's wisdom in that. It shows that you have a heart and you have compassion, and there's strength of spirit that is gained in coming up with the solutions to alleviate the suffering of others. Some of the other names of Nienna are Heskiel, which is winter one, and Nori, which is sighing one, and Cualme Tari, which is mistress of death. So these were also names that she was also referred to as well. So Nienna, as I said in the beginning in the Silmarillion, she is one of the sisters of the Feantori. And the Feantori were the other two brothers, Lorien and Mandos. Lorien is the maker and the master of dreams. And Mandos was basically, he had the Hall of Mandos, so he was overseeing the spirits of the dead and judging them, and based on what they've done in life, they can enter into the halls of Mandos, or they get trapped in there as Melkor did, and he was constrained in there for a long time because of his evils that he did in Middle Earth, or in Arda. And so she was one of the sisters that represented the masters of spirits, because she had influence over spirits. Most of our suffering and our mourning and our pity comes when we lose a loved one or someone that's very close to us, or seeing death and tragedy in the world. So she was looking over that and helped also the lost spirits in the world understand this sorrow, that there was this greater knowledge that is gained through that. And like all tears, we know that they're healing. Some people may be afraid to cry, but there's a lot of healing in tears. You should never be afraid to cry. It is a release to you. It lets you release all of the toxins within your body by all of these emotions that you've carried for so long. So it's great to cry and to release all of the sadness and all of the feelings that you may have. And she teaches this, and what we find out is that her tears actually help the trees grow. It says here, but like all tears, there is healing and growth. So her tears helped grow Yavanna's trees as she sat and thought in silence and watered the ground with tears. Yavanna was the Valar of nature, and she was responsible for growing all of the flora and all, the trees, the two trees of the Silmarillion. And she partnered with Nienna because trees were also helping to basically make everything grow. And this is a symbolism for the idea that tears actually help you grow. And this is a wisdom that Tolkien added so that people would know about this type of expression of emotion that would help people grow in life. Nienna was also the only Vala to be compassionate towards Melkor, who symbolized kind of the devil or the antagonist in Tolkien's world, in his universe. Melkor symbolized discord and not wanting to play in harmony with the others, but to increase his own part. And Nienna was the only one that actually had compassion towards him, even though he did so much evil in the world. It is said that after Melkor completed his term of bondage, after he tried to destroy the Valar's creations on Earth, he dwelt for 3 ages in the Doris of Mandos alone. And this is the constraints of Mandos, where he had to basically wander the halls of this kind of in-between place, the Hall of Mandos, for many ages. And eventually, Manwë, the leader of the Vala, he promised that Melkor would be brought back to trial in front before the thrones of the Valar to decide, what should happen and how they can move forwards in harmony, because the Valar were always looking to move in harmony with Melkor, the other Ainur, and they truly wanted to bring his part in with theirs. They were not looking to push Melkor out, but unfortunately, that's what he represented. And we know that there was a purpose for his part, but this is why they wanted to see if Melkor could maybe change his tune a bit and come back in and be more harmonious with them. Before the gates of Valimar, Melkor abased himself at the feet of Manwë and sued for pardon, vowing that he might be made only the least of the free people of Valinor. He would aid the Valar in all of their works, and most of all in the healing of the many hurts that he had done to the world. And Nienna aided his prayer, but Mandos was silent. Then Manwë granted him pardon. So Nienna was the one that listened to Melkor, basically showing that he was sorry for the things that he did in the beginning by destroying many things on Arda. And Nienna listened to him, and she was very fair. And she's always kind of been fair and known to be that way. And I'll read at the very end a long part of her basically judging and showing how her fairness and judgment happened. And we'll do that at the end. So later on in the Silmarillion, we learned that Melkor, the Ainur of Discord, did actually not keep his promise and created Ungoliant, which is mother of Shelob, that Frodo had to fight later. So it was this evil, dark spirit in the form of a giant spider. So not quite all completely animal like the spider, but more like a dark energy that just wanted to eat the light. Ungoliant was a giant spider being or entity that was really dark energy that just ate up all the light of Arda, including the 2 trees. And Feanor, which we learn is a Noldor elf, that was one who actually went to the Valar, and he was the one to alert the Valar of what Melkor was doing, which they named Morgoth, because that was the name for Melkor. And this is what happened, is that Feanor came to the Valar, and he was unfortunately judged to either be imprisoned there or he could never return in some way, because anytime a mortal crosses over into the immortal lands, then, well, I mean, the elves are not really mortal, but they're definitely not at the level of the Valar. And so the idea that Feanor came to the Valar, it caused the Valar to basically question if he could ever go back. And Feanor, he knew that he could not return after seeing the Valar, and he could be constrained there, trapped forever. And Mandos heard his report of Morgoth and said, "Well, thou hast spoken." But Nienna arose, and she went up into Azelohar, which was the green mound before the western gates of Valmar, and that's the city of the Valar. And she cast back her gray hood, and with her tears she washed away the defilements of Ungoliant, and she sang in mourning for the bitterness of the world and the marring of Arda. So she was the one that was actually able to cleanse Arda with her tears of all of the darkness and the evil that Ungoliant did. And this began the healing of Arda/Earth of the damage done to it. Yet the hiding of Valinor started to begin when Feanor eventually challenged the Valar and started the enslaving and the kinslaying. That was the only time elves killed one another was in history, when Feanor wanted to take the Teleri ships and sail, and unfortunately the Teleri elves were killed for their ships. And the Valar were beyond sad to see the children of Eru act the way that they did, and thus began the hiding away of the west, of Valinor, which is also known as Faerie. Manwë bade Yavanna and Nienna to put forth all their powers of growth and healing. And they put forth their powers upon the two trees, but the tears of Nienna availed not to heal their mortal wounds. And for a long while, Yavanna sang alone in the shadows, not even as hope failed, and her song faltered, till Pirion bore at last upon a leafless bough one great flower of silver, and Lorelin a single fruit of gold. So this is the part where we see Nienna as being both a helper in healing Arda and in helping all beings on Middle Earth understand their suffering if they truly focused on Nienna and as far as kind of embraced her wisdom. This is what they had to gain. So the benefits of working with her powers are a lot of different things for us. Benefits are to help build and cultivate more compassion in yourself, and the ability to release emotions easily or tears, but in a more balanced way of understanding the need for them to be expressed and understanding when to be more quiet and more in solitude with your thoughts. So there's this wisdom of when basically to express yourself that happens when you focus on her particular strengths and her powers. So she helps to promote understanding within yourself, healing within yourself, and also promotes the growth of your own spirit and your strength, your inner strength, because it's something that many of you have maybe awakened to, is that when you are in touch with all of your emotions and you do not hide from your emotions and push them down, you truly are more stronger for it. And this is something that Nienna can teach. This is especially good for those who suffered any losses in life or experience of grief of loved ones. And this will also help to build a greater understanding of tragedy and sadness that come into your life. And you might be able to look at it later on in the future, in hindsight, looking back, why you went through that tragedy. Why did you go through that suffering? It's something very hard to do when you're in the moment. You know, when I lost my mother at 14, I was definitely not in the moment to see the wisdom behind it. But later on, as I aged, I started to understand, why did I go through that experience? Why was it important for my spiritual development, as well as what did it do as far as aid her in her spiritual growth and help her transition into the next phase? And this is how we could start to look at death on earth in a form of spiritual development that all of us must go through at some point, and we can learn to let go with more ease and allow that time naturally to come, rather than holding on so much to life. Not so much about taking our lives, but about just honoring the sacred life while we have it and allowing it to let go gently and lovingly when it is time, and when we can feel that it is time within ourselves, having this greater understanding. And this is what Nienna can do, is she can help you understand this later on in hindsight. Also, she is the purification of all darkness and evil, or wrongful intentions and ignorance. As we know, darkness is actually what symbolizes ignorance, and evil is the wrongful intentions that people may have based on their ignorance and their spiritual unawareness of unity with one another, and forgetting about this interconnection to others. In that very moment, they are only focused on their own ego needs at that time. And so she is the purification of all that darkness. And this is why tomorrow's ritual will be very cleansing for many of us that have experienced our own darkness in life and are ready to just wash that all away with her tears. And just, it's very symbolic of just a rebirth. Tolkien was just so wise with that. That she really represents that purification through expression of emotions, of what you have done, the realization of what you have done, what others have done, and moving from the heart of compassion and understanding rather than anger or wrath. And she will help cleanse your spirit or the wrongs that you may have done with the power of forgiveness. Compassion is basically what moves people towards forgiving others. Being able to understand where people are coming from and understanding why they made that choice, then you can have the strength to forgive others. Only when you are able to empathize with them and have compassion with them are you able to forgive someone. And this is very cleansing for your own soul, because if someone ever did you wrong, if you can learn how to forgive them, how healing it is for you as well. It's so healing that you're able to forgive another, and they will get some reward in that. But it is also about you allowing yourself to let go of those negative energies that you have held on to so long, of others that have hurt you in the past. So tomorrow's ritual will be very good for those that have been hurt before by others, only because they do not know what they have done, or they do not recognize what they have done to hurt you. And maybe you didn't get closure because it simply is not where they are spiritually. Only when a person awakens spiritually can they come back to you and ask for your forgiveness. This goes hand in hand. Forgiveness is hand in hand with a greater spiritual awakening and understanding within. And those who have just not had that time yet, then you need to realize where they are. And if you do not get that closure, at least you can get this closure in a whole other way, by understanding that there's a greater power out there that understands you, understands what you went through, and is ready to purify you with love and understanding and compassion. She gives you the power and strength to forgive others too. So if you are having a very hard time forgiving others, it's just very difficult. Maybe because they've done something that you feel is just something that you can never really let go of in your mind, and it's hurt you so much. If you focus your intent into those powers of compassion and mercy that Nienna represents, this is when you get the inner strength, the strength of the spirit to actually forgive others. And like I said, this is so cleansing to your own soul. She helps you turn your sorrow into wisdom. And this is something that was said in the beginning of the Silmarillion. And this is very true, that later on you can understand all of your sorrow and all of your tragedies that you have gone through when you can project your thoughts towards her powers. You can then understand and have more knowledge and wisdom surrounding your own tragedies and sadness in life. And this is how she helps us understand how sadness eventually brings more wisdom into you. And something that's really wonderful, truly wonderful about the way that this works is that when you have this tragedy or this sadness occur in your life and you go through it and you learn day by day how to get through it, whether through counseling, whether through self-help, whether through getting help by others, whether through a spiritual way or spiritual path, any method that you can will lead you on a journey of healing, as long as you are aware of it and you're not ignoring it, but you're facing it. You're really facing it. And when you do that, you reach a subtle movement towards healing. And what this will do is this will give you the wisdom, because wisdom is experience based on knowledge. When you enter into this place of wisdom from tragedy and suffering that you have gone through, then you may be a teacher or a guide to help others. And so there's this beautiful circle of the student of life becomes a teacher of wisdom. And this is how you can give back to the world. After you gain that wisdom within yourself, you can help others then. And then one day they can help others as well. And this is the best thing that I have done with my own sadness and tragedies, is turn them into wisdom that I can share and help others with. This is something that is a cycle in which it is part of the collective mechanism of how souls help each other grow. We are all interconnected this way. And so as one helps you grow out of your tragedies and sadness, one day you will be able to help others grow out of their tragedy and sadness, if you so choose. That is the potential that you will hold and you will carry within you based on your experiences. And Nienna will help you understand more about this. And this is something that you can bring more into your life if you're willing to be an aid to others that have also gone through a lot of sadness and suffering. There are some crystals that you can use in your life as far as helping you to kind of aid in amplifying the power of Nienna. This is something that's not found in Tolkien's writings, but it's just something that I have thought that will definitely help you. Is the different crystals are, I would say, rose quartz. Rose quartz is known as the stone of unconditional love. This is a stone that will absolutely provide you with the need for self-healing and growth, and it will promote compassion and forgiveness. It also helps you physically with the heart. It helps to uh, bring forth more of a soothing and a calming to the heart pains. A lot of people that suffer from uh, tragedy may suffer, heart attacks or heart and chest pain, even indigestion and feelings, tightness in the chest. And that's because you're feeling the pain body in your heart. Literally, your heart chakra is actually in pain. And so, wearing rose quartz around your neck, close to your chest, will always help. This is a crystal, I think, that really symbolizes her particular energies of compassion and mercy and healing and growth. And it really is a gentle stone for helping to amplify these energies within you. The other one I picked out was obsidian. Obsidian is like this gray, steely kind of almost a black, but it has like a gray shimmer to it type of stone. And this particular one has been used by Native Americans to form their arrows, and they've used it in a way to guard off negative energies. And I found that obsidian is really great to help just be a shield and a defense against negative energies from others as well as yourself. Because who hurts ourselves the most is ourselves with our negative talk. And when we're in this place of unawareness spiritually, when we're really not understanding our greater power, and we have forgotten what we're really connected to as far as the prime source and at the highest levels, I mean, it's us experiencing our own life and our own universe. When we are reminded of that power, that's when we can stop the negative self-tape going over and over and over in our minds. And so this is a really important stone because it will help us to get over the negative self-talk and the negative thoughts that we may do to ourselves. And it's also a protector and a shield against darkness, which she was able to cleanse the world of Melkor's dark energy. And, Melkor's dark energy is in the spirit of Nienna. I can speak from this place. Melkor's dark energy is expressed in the Silmarillion that he was always kind of jealous of the Valar. He saw them happy after he made his choice to separate himself from the other Ainur and cause discord and sounds of, disharmony and ugly, dark things on Arda. This caused him to feel isolated and separated from all the other Valar that seemed to be having a really great time. They were always happy and in bliss and beautiful, shining and good. And he looked at them with jealousy and envy because he made his choice to walk away from that. And the spirit of Nienna can come through me to show that this is why she had that compassion for Melkor, because she knew that he was the part of the mind of Eru that sat in darkness, that forgot its true self, that was ignorant and wanted to increase his own part without even thinking about the others, a moment of ego. And so this was why Nienna had this type of compassion for Melkor. She knew that he was sorry deep inside. She knew that she could see that. But the problem with Melkor is that he represented this darkness. There was no end to it. It was like a void, so hungry for love, hungry for attention, hungry for all the things that those who do dark acts are. They're insatiable. They cannot quench their thirst and hunger for more power. And so this is why, even though he promised the Valar that he was going to become a free people of Valinor and he was going to help and aid the Valar, he ended up not. He ended up causing even more destruction. And later on, we know in the Third Age, we have, these servants of his, like Sauron, who still, all the way to the Third Age, still wanted to spread that darkness. It's because it's never ending. Once you choose that path, unless you have some kind of light of humility and sadness for what you have done, and realization and true realization and a real change of heart, then the darkness does not stop. You can't stop it until you really awake. You really awake and realize who you can be and how you are better than that choice. And that's what Nienna was able to see in Melkor. And unfortunately, he just never made that choice to be part of the harmony. But there's a reason for it, because without him, we might not understand what harmony is. Everything has to have its opposite. There's a duality in this material, physical universe in order to know one from another. And only in the states of non-duality can you understand that everything is interconnected and they play off of each other. And there's this dance of intimacy so that one may work for the other and help basically give all the beings having that life experience a greater wisdom and a knowledge based on having both darkness and light and experiencing those two. Because life is not just light. Life is both darkness and light. And there's going to be tragedy and suffering and sadness, but we can learn from it. We can grow from it. And there is great opportunity to have love grow even stronger in those moments. Many of us have had experiences where we have lost a loved one in our life. And what have we realized is that the people around us that are still alive, our friends, maybe our spouses, maybe just strangers online or offline, they show their love and their concern for you. Even though you experienced that loss in your life, you have gained a friend, a companion, and a deeper understanding of love and friendship in another way. So energy always balances itself out. And that's what we can learn from the spirit of Nienna and bringing her powers into our lives. We can become more wise with why do we go through suffering? Why do we go through trauma? Why do bad things happen to good people? She answers all of that for us when we get in touch with it. So I'm going to read you one last bit here to show you how her mind really thinks, because in the Silmarillion, she really is kind of quiet, and she's one of the Valar that's not married, and she's usually on her own. And it's her home or her house is known as Night, a place of darkness and solitude, not evil darkness, but just quiet solitude. And she's always really thoughtful and quiet, but there are some times that she does speak. So I'm going to read you that part here that I found. This is in Morgoth's Ring. And this is a great book for those that want to see more of kind of the customs of the elves, and just a little bit deeper understanding of the way that the elves lived and the Valar as well. So this is about the laws and customs along the Eldar pertaining to marriage and other matters relating, together with the statue of Finwë and Meriel and the debate of the Valar at its making. So this is exactly what it said in Morgoth's ring. Then Nienna spoke, who came to Valmar seldom, but sat now upon the left hand of Manwë. In the use of justice there must be pity, which is the consideration of the singleness of each that cometh under justice. Which of you, Valar, in your wisdom, will blame these children, Finwë and Mariel? For the children are both strong and without might. Mandos you hold to be the strongest of all that are in Arda, being the least moved, and therefore you have dared to commit even the Marier himself to his keeping. Yet I say to you that each Fia of the children is as strong as he, and the Fia or the Fea is the soul, and the Hora is the body of the elf. The Fea is the light that comes from, it's the light of the void of Eru Luvatar. It's that spark of divine consciousness. And the Hora is more of like the material body that's made from the earth or Arda. And so she's saying, yet I say to you that each Fia of the children is as strong as he, for it hath the strength of its singleness impregnable, which cometh to it from Eru as to us. In its nakedness it is obdurate, beyond all power that ye have to move it if it will not. Yet the children are not mighty, in life they are little, and can affect little, and they are young, and know time only. Their minds are as the hands of their babes, little in grasp, and even that grasp is yet unfilled. How shall they perceive the end of deeds, or forego the desires which arise from their very nature, the indwelling of the spirit in the body, which is their right condition? Have ye known the weariness of Mariel, or felt the bereavement of Finwë? So as you can see, she is the one that is saying, yes, there's going to have to be justice, and we should do that. But within justice, within that justice system, there must always be pity and understanding what each of the person has gone through in order to get to that place, such as the tiredness of Mariel and the bereavement of Finwë. He lost his love of his life. And so Nienna is the one to actually point that out, that this is what's missing from our justice system a lot of times on Earth. We need to look at the lives of those that commit wrong and understand where they came from. And in that spirit, we can help heal them and ensure that there's no repeat crimes, because most people are just trying to understand and allow the light to poke through their darkness by just having someone take a chance at seeing that light within them, because they can't see it themselves. And that's what Nienna represents. She is able to see the sadness and the tragedy that also causes violence on Arda as well, and why it's important within the justice system to be able to include pity and compassion. And I'll just keep on going here because this is interesting. Mariel, I deem, died by necessity of body, in suffering for which she was blameless, or indeed to be praised, and yet was not given power to resist it, the cost of so great a childbearing. And hereon, I think that Ole perceiveth a part of the truth. The severance of the Fia was in Mariel a thing special. Death is indeed death, and within the great theme cometh from the Marier, and is grievous. But Eru in this death had a purpose of immediate good, and it need not have borne any bitter fruit, whereas death that comes from the Marier only is intended for evil, and its healing must await in hope only, even until the end. But Finwë, not understanding death, as how should he, called Miriel, and she did not return, and he was bereaved, and his natural life and expectation was impaired. Justly he cried, "Is there not healing in Amen?" That cry could not be unheeded, and what could be done we have done. Wherefore should this be grudged? So that was a very special part that shows Nienna's ability to show compassion and see both sides of the story and be that voice of compassion, mercy, and fairness. And I would think that the great thing about the elves later on in the Third Age, what we learn about Galadriel being such a fair judge of others, why the Valar were so important, and what the elves represented is that they were closer connected to the Valar than the men of Middle-earth. And Galadriel, you could see this bit of Nienna in her. So all the elves and all the men have this capability and these energies and these powers within themselves. It's about listening to that still voice within and getting in touch with that ability to show that compassion, that mercy, and that understanding when it is needed. And to understand that all the sorrow that you go through in life will aid you in your own wisdom later. So this is what we learn from Nienna. And I hope that you will join me tomorrow and Calatir Niel for the special cleansing purification ritual that we will do together. Everyone have a wonderful day. Namaste.